Hi, everybody. This is Dear Mama Sal, and welcome to our broadcast. We just need to do one small thing here, which is I want to move this orchid over here so that you guys can see it. Okay. This one over a bit. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better. Hi, Kerry, and hi, Jody. First of all, for those of you watching for the first time, maybe ghosting, welcome. We always welcome anybody who joins our broadcasts. Our Sunday evening broadcasts are normally what we call our soul broadcasts. We get in touch with ourselves a little bit more on Sundays. So for those of you who haven't done that before and maybe watching on the replay, you're going to notice at the bottom here, it's going to say from 00 to certain time, news, views, and updates. And then from that time onwards, the topic of the day, which will be Soul Work Sunday. And today I'm focusing a lot of my thoughts and prayers around Remembrance Day, and that's Veterans Day in the States. And that is why I'm wearing a poppy, and I will talk about that as well. It's all part of the process. So welcome for those of you who are here already. It's really great to see you, and thank you for being here. Hi, Amel. Good to see you. You were here earlier, Amel. I see that you were the first in the room today. So great to have you here. All right, so you finished, Marie, hi there. You finished your paper just in time for the broadcast. That's called great discipline. You know, that you gave yourself that goal to finish it before you came to the broadcast. I love that. Well done. I've been having quite a busy day, I must admit. For some reason, I only slept about 4 hours last night, apparently. And so what you're seeing is what's left of me. So first of all, I wanted to give our thoughts and prayers out for all the people. I believe it's now up to 25 people who have died in the California wildfire that was set up by somebody with a campfire. I mean, can you imagine being that person? But the sad news is there's still like over 100 missing. So I'm sure that that figure is going to go up. And gee, thank you, Jody. Jody says you look beautiful as usual. You know, she is my greatest supporter, really. But, you know, I was thinking, you know, how scary this must be for so many people. Hi, Trish, good to see you. Oh, Trina, why I called you Trish, I don't know. Good to see you, Trina. So for those who understand this, I mean, have any of you been in a wildfire so you understand the terror of it? I have a number of times when I was in Africa. You know, somebody, a drunk would walk through a valley, you know, with a cigarette and just throw it. And the next thing we knew, the whole of the valley would be in flames. And we were all out protecting houses, livestock, goodness knows what else. And I'm pleased to say that of the probably 6 fires that I helped put out, we didn't lose our home. But you understand, it was touch and go. What amazes me with this reality is that California, and maybe they're doing it now, but, you know, I don't know about the rest of you, but there needs to be a bylaw that says if you're building a house, you must be able to, what's the word? You know, have water, like a sprinkler system that goes out on the roof and stops, you know, it catching on fire if possible. So to me, that would make a lot of logical sense, because I don't think these wildfires are going to be less than, I think we're going to see more than enough of them with the global warming. So anyway, that's just my thought. And for those of you coming from England and Ireland, I wanted to take a moment, if it's okay. I just wanted to check how many of you have had grandparents or parents in the military. Yeah, I was wondering with Jamie whether, you know, she was in any way in the line of fire. I forgot to ask her today. But, you know, your brother lives in San Diego, right? Okay, so Jody has family in the military. So I just sure that all of us want to thank everybody who's ever had a family member in the military, be it a grandfather or a father or a mother or. Yes, Linda, I see. That's what I thought. I had a memory that you had some serious memories there with prisoner of war and a veteran, a VC. Really, he got the Victoria Cross. Wow. For those of you who don't know, that's the British highest award you can get for valor, for bravery. And most people who have received the Victoria Cross will tell you that they thought, it's an amazing thing when I've actually read interviews that they've done with holders of the Victoria Cross. And it's amazing how many of them said, I thought I was going to die anyway, so I wanted to go out doing something good. You know what I mean? And then survived it and ended up getting, you know, the highest honor for bravery. And a lot of them actually said no, because for them, it wasn't a brave act. They thought they were going to die. And therefore that they wanted to go out doing something good, and which was still a good reason to have the Victoria Cross in my view. Anyway, so Linda, thank you and your family, and Jody, thank you and your family. Yeah, Kerry has her father and two of her grandpas were in the military. Some of you know that my father, who is long gone, but my father actually was a bomber pilot and then went on to be one of Winston Churchill's wing commanders. So he lived both sides of that war, if you like. Wow, and Kerry's saying that her grandfather Chisholm got 2 Purple Hearts and several medals. All right, so Linda is actually mentioning that her family member is Albert Edward Shepherd in World War I. And Linda, I don't think I can do this without crying because it makes me cry. But I wanted to read, the words of In Flanders Field for those of us who have family members that go back to World War I. And there's part of me that cannot believe that I heard it correctly, but I heard that the reason that President Trump didn't go to the ceremony was because it was raining too hard. And I'm going, I think I must have heard that wrong, because we're talking about men who died in the trenches, you know, up to their waists in water and mud and, you know, climbing through barbed wire and, you know, to me, it's just like it was raining too hard, really. Anyway, let me not continue on that story. So I want to read you the reason why those of us who wear poppies, why we wear them. This was written, it was a poem written about World War I, and it said, in Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our places, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. And if you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Okay. That's the reason we wear poppies. Because it was the Battle of the Somme, right? So many died. I'll be fine. Anyway, I wanted to read it because I think it's important that we share that. All right. Now then, let me get on to... Whew. All right. So anybody got any news for the day? Real men and women, yes. Real men and women indeed. And boys. I say and boys because an awful lot of people signed up to fight that were not old enough to go and still went. Okay, I can do this. So I just really wanted to check before we go on whether any of you have any news or views or updates for us. No, gosh, Linda is saying that her partner, Mick, his dad was on the bridge of the River Kwai. Do any of you not know about the bridge over the River Kwai? That is incredible. Did he live to tell the tale, Linda? That is an incredible story. Have any of you not heard the story? Because it really is an incredible movie. If ever you can, Alec Guinness, I think, if I'm correct, if ever you get a chance to see it, the story of the bridge over the River Kwai. His dad survived. Wow, that is amazing. Okay, so just so that you know, a group of prisoners of war to the Japanese, right? Was it the Japanese? I think it was the Japanese. Anyway, they were forced to build a bridge and over the River Kwai. And the movie is all about how they built this bridge. But the most incredible thing was that as they finished building it, they knew that the enemy was going to be traveling across it. So the last thing they did was blow it up. Can you imagine that? They spent like a year building that thing, I believe, and it was like slave labor and everything else, and it was terrible conditions and horrible conditions. And then their last act of defiance, only 350 survived out of 35,000 in that camp. Is that right? I didn't know that. Wow. And your relative was one of them, Linda. That is incredible. Or mixed relative. Wow, that is amazing. Can you imagine that? Only 350 out of 35,000. You've got to, something though? I don't know about the rest of you, but if you were one of the survivors, you probably would find it difficult to accept that it was okay to survive. You know what I mean? I'm pretty certain, and I don't know if you know about it, I'm pretty sure that they suffered from survivor's guilt, Linda, because, if so few survived it, it's like an airplane crash. A lot of people, some go, okay, there's a reason why I was allowed to survive. But for a lot of people, they go into guilt and go, I should have been amongst the dead. I didn't deserve to live. There were better people than me that died, sort of thing. And, that is really sad. But It was interesting because I was talking last night to Lauren in Tasmania, and she was talking about the fear that she has now that there's been this ISIS attack in Melbourne. And interestingly enough, Jody made a comment and said, well, Sal's always got a good attitude about this. Well, I have to tell you that my attitude is, if my number is up, it's up. And it won't matter whether I'm crossing the street right outside my house, or whether I'm driving my car, or whatever. You know, if it's my time to go, I will go, whether it's in an ISIS attack or some other way. And I was reminding people about how many people missed the very first World Trade Center bombing, but got killed in the second one. And then how many people missed the Twin Towers attack and then ended up dying in Vegas. So to me, if your number is up, your number is up. And, you know, whether you're driving your car or whatever will not really make a difference. So please do not spend your life going, I better not fly, I better not go near, you know, an event, I better not do anything because maybe they will attack. Well, maybe they won't. And so I would ask you, you know, be brave. Like those who fought on Flanders Fields, you know, be brave. Don't give in to the terror. I refuse to, you know, when I need to fly, I fly. I don't sort of go, oh gosh, I wonder if there's a, you know, it's like if my number's up, it's up, you know, and so I refuse to live my life in that sort of terror, because I think then they win. That's what they want. They're called terrorists because they want to spread terror. So I'm a bit bloody minded about that. You know, as far as possible, you're not going to do that. So I see it, I hear it, I feel it in my soul. And then I go, it's my job to continue. I was not there. I need to continue and do my best. And so really be aware of that. Yes, Kerry says she still goes and does things because I survive. I have good memories. If I die, I'd have died doing something I love. Yes, and that's really important that you understand that. About the orchid. Some of you know that I don't do surprise visits very well. It's not in my list of things that I allow people to do with me. You know, if you know me well, you know not to give me a surprise visit. So imagine my absolute amazement yesterday when I got out of the shower with my hair sopping wet. I was in my robe, and thank goodness. And I didn't realize it, but somebody had been ringing my doorbell and then walked in, because that's what everybody knows, because I live on the second floor. And I came face to face with Dougie, who was carrying the orchid. And I just, I was trying to work out which one I was more pleased to see, you know, and he knew that. But, you know, Dougie's really clever. He wanted to come and visit me and give me a surprise, but he knew he better go and get an orchid first to cover the anger. And then it was really funny because I said to him, you know, I need to go and get some clothes on, seriously. You know, I had my hair wrapped in a T-shirt, really pretty. A hair wrapped in a T-shirt and, you know, my big fuzzy robe. It was really quite a sight to see. So I went off and I went and got some clothes on, and then we sat and discussed all sorts of things. All right, so how is he? He is wonderful. He's going to Kenya for Christmas, Linda. I don't know if you remember, but the last year his grandfather died, and in the Kenyan culture, you know, the male members of the family are held in a very high esteem. And because Doug couldn't fly out last year, they're holding a memorial service for his grandfather this Christmas. And Doug is flying out for it because he is the firstborn son. of the firstborn son of that grandfather. Do you understand the lineage there? So it is really important for Doug to be there. And so he's going to be there for Christmas. So he popped in and I said, I hope you're coming back one more time before you go. But I did say to him as I was giving him a hug goodbye that if he didn't have time to come back one more time before he goes, because he'll be going at the beginning of December, I'd forgive him. He's looking great and he's happy. And, it's bittersweet going back to the family for the memorial, but I think he's happy to go and see his parents and, spend some time. I always tell the story to you all, but I need you to remember this, that, his extended family, he will go and visit, and they are still in mud huts with dirt on the floor, but they all have cell phones. To me, this is the modern Africa, all right? They still live in mud huts, but they've all got cell phones. And you're going, how do they have cell phones out in the Bundu? They're the wind-up ones. Hang on a second. If you guys haven't got one of these, I have two of these. One in my car, in case I ever have a problem when I'm driving. And the other is in my house, in case I need power for my cell phone and there's a power cut. And where you just literally wind this up and it's got a special USB port on it, so I can recharge my phone. And it's also that. So that's how they do it in Africa, right? Where they're out in the Bundu, middle of nowhere, they all have charge up their phones that way. How many of you have got one of these? Yeah, it's really, really important. My one in the car, the one I have in my car, also has a radio in it. So it's a very useful thing to have, because literally, if you do run out of power, I always, I hate to say this, but, if you think about an earthquake or something, you have ways of charging your flashlight, but you also have ways of using your phone if the tower hasn't come down. The other thing is, do you all know the Morse code? All right, if you have a flashlight. Right, dit, 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 da, 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 dit, 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 SOS. You all knew that? So you just literally go dit, 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 da, 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 dit, dit, dit. That's SOS in Morse. Wow, Linda's saying that while doing family research, she found out that one of her partner's relatives and hers were stationed together. Boy, you were meant to do that. Yeah. They have Wi-Fi. I think they do it. That's a very good question. I think they do it via satellite. I think that's how they do it. I could be wrong, but I'll check with Dougie. But I know it's amazing. So that's it. And so to all of you, I would really say thank you. For all of you who've got members of your family or your extended families in the military who are and have fought to keep us free. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to give a couple of quotes on Veterans Day, because I think it's important for us to remember. Douglas MacArthur, some of you will have heard of him, he said, "The soldier above all others prays for peace, for it is the soldier who must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war." Isn't that the truth? We can give it a lot of lip service, but it's the people who are out there fighting the fight. On this Veterans Day, let us remember the service of our veterans and let us renew our national promise to fulfill our sacred obligations to our veterans and their families who have sacrificed so much so that we can live free. Hi, Jamie. I was just talking about you. Jamie, are those wildfires far away from you, we hope? And you understand when I talk about these quotes and I think about, that the leader of the free world said, "Sorry, I'm not going to go to the cemetery. It's raining too hard." I'm not joking. I just rolled my eyes and went, now I've heard it all. Can you imagine how much money they spent on security for that trip, for him to go there? Can you imagine everything that had to be done to make that trip to the cemetery possible for him, and then he decided it was raining too hard? I just go, really? I mean, I'm sorry, there's part of me that just, it's veterans, for goodness sake. And I can't help but wonder what the veterans thought of that. It'll be interesting. I haven't seen any comments from veterans yet, but I'd be very interested to see what they have to say, especially the families of those that fought in World War I. There is a certain enthusiasm in liberty that makes human nature rise above itself in acts of bravery and heroism. It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived. Wow, isn't that truth? We should be forever grateful that they lived and gave their lives so we could be free. Brave men rejoice in adversity, just as brave soldiers triumph in war. Shame on him. Trina, I want to tell you something. That wasn't quite what I said, but it had that sort of vibe to it, yeah. Yes, a very good point, Linda. How many veterans struggle to get out of bed today to attend services for their fallen friends? Yeah, very good point, yeah. Now, he did do a little ceremony close by. He just didn't go to this one at the cemetery. So, because it was raining too hard. It takes a hero to be one of those men who goes into battle. How many of you agree with that? That just to sign up and go, you become a hero. Now, I don't want to put a downer on today, but do you agree that we, at very least, deserve to give these people a little bit of our time? And I'm hoping that you agree with me that I think the generations are beginning to forget what people have done, to make sure that you can live the life that you live. And so this is another great quote. It says, "The veterans of our military services have put their lives on the line to protect the freedoms that we enjoy. They have dedicated their lives to their country and deserve to be recognized for their commitment." You bet. By the way, I've heard some people say, well, he wasn't in the front lines, he wasn't doing that. He was just doing whatever. I think that everybody plays their part. I think about how many of you remember or have heard of Bob Hope. he was a very well-known comic, and he spent most of his time, actually, when I say most of his time, but I think every year he went to go and entertain the troops anywhere in the world. And, in the war years, he spent, I think, his whole time doing that. So do you think that in itself is a commitment? I always think it incredible that Elvis Presley, with all his fame, actually did go and do his national service. He did it in Germany. And so, you look at it and go, gosh, that is really incredible. And then you have the other side of it. Vera Lynn. Yes, you remember Vera Lynn as well. For those of you who don't know who Vera Lynn was, very well-known British singer, along with Rosemary Clooney. And you might know the word Clooney from George Clooney. Guess why? So, yeah, exactly. That very well-known last name and very rare last name. And so the Vera Lynn and Rosemary Clooney, Vera Lynn particularly, White Cliffs of Dover, they sang some incredibly haunting songs to motivate the troops. Do I think that was going to war in their own way? I think so. Do you know what I mean? I think everybody did their bit. And the reason I want to talk about that is because sometimes I think some of you think you're not, how do I know what my mission in life is? How do I know what it is I'm meant to do? And one of the things I always say to people is, I may still find out that what I was meant to do on this earth isn't what I did. All I know is whenever I lose my path, I always end up coming back doing what I do in some way. And I said, I have to believe it is what I am meant to do, because I keep coming back to it. And, I've done it. I've done it on stage. I've done it, here with YouTube. I've done it wherever. I've done it helping in different ways. And I go, I realize that is my mission. Yes, and that's so true. Linda, I agree with you. Linda's saying that, for some of us, our mission in life is just to smile at a person to make them feel better. And some of you have tried that and found out what magic there is in that. We were talking on Friday, for those of you who missed the broadcast, about how to do Christmas on a very tight budget. Because contrary to what everybody thinks, and not everybody feels that the economy has worked in their favor in the last couple of years. Not everybody feels like they've got a lot of money. And we were talking about how to reuse, recycle, how to upmarket stuff and give presents from the heart rather than from the pocketbook. Some of you will have seen, I put up a thing on Facebook that I think Marie sent about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it was the hierarchy of giving, and saying the very last thing you should do is buy a present. Bake something, make something, create something, recycle something. The very last thing you should do is just go out and buy something. And we were also talking about how to wrap things cheaply, or how to wrap it so we're not throwing so much paper away into the garbage. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to have a look at that, because there were some great ideas in there. I was actually quite delighted at some of the things they came up with. Arthur Ashe, the tennis player, said, "True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost." How many of you can feel that? It's not about being better than everybody else. It's about serving everybody else. And There's part of me that's got a sense of humor now. I'm laughing because I'm going, don't you find that funny that Arthur Ashe, the tennis player, talks about serving everybody else? Do anybody else find that amusing? Anyway, no, but the service above self is the motto of all Rotarians, right? That they do things above their own needs. And Charles Rangel, he's in the Senate, isn't he? Charles Rangel. Why do I recognize that name? Honoring the sacrifices many made for our country in the name of freedom and democracy is the very foundation of Veterans Day. And another one from MacArthur, who said, duty, honor, country. These three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be. Did I get it right? Thank you, Jody. He is a member of the Senate? I had a feeling he was. How about that? How many of you can name any Senate members in Canada? Well, one day of the year is dedicated solely to honoring our veterans. Americans must never forget the sacrifice that many of our fellow countrymen have made to defend our country and protect our freedom. And I would say that as well, that those who stayed behind, those who were in the Home Guard, did their part. All the people who, all the women who went and worked in the factories because the men were at war, did their part. All the people who sold their pots and pans so they could make another airplane, or not sold them, donated their pots and pans so they could make another airplane, they did their part. Yes, and Trina's saying that she must listen back to that broadcast about Christmas because she really thinks Christmas starts too early and puts people under too much pressure. Trina, the whole subject of Friday night's broadcast was, let us remember it 'tis the season to be jolly. And let us think about what we need to do so that we don't get stressed out. And I'm actually making it a thing that I'm going out to buy at least 1 or 2 presents this week that I haven't already got. And I'm going to do at least one batch of dough. You know what I mean? So that, and I'm going to actually cut it into cookies and then freeze them on a flat plate, on a flat server, and then stack them so that when I want to bake them, I can just literally put them onto the baking pan and let them thaw and then just cook them. So I won't, I'll just put a little bit of wax paper between them so that I won't even have to wait for it to thaw and then do everything. I'm actually going to cut it immediately. All right. And this is a really nice quote, and it says, in war, the heroes always outnumber the soldiers 10-1. Isn't that amazing? I find it really interesting that that part of what's happening in France, everybody's, nearly everybody is, trying to remember that this is the 100-year anniversary of Armistice Day, the day that World War I stopped. And I find it really incredible that President Macron of France actually really said that Europe now needs to build its own army to protect it against China, Russia, and maybe the US. Don't you think that is just amazing that we have come to that point? right? That people in Europe are now worried about whether they need to protect themselves from the US. I don't know about you, but it was just like, how sad that we have come to that place. Trina says she doesn't stress out anymore about Christmas. It comes with age. I have to disagree with you to some degree. I think some of us will stress out about Christmas because we're never ready on time. And, we and other people, are ready way ahead of time and they don't have stress. I like anything else in life, I think Christmas takes a lot longer to put together than we ever give it credit for. And so that's why it's really important to think about that. I think it's sickening too, Pat, but I just, quite honestly, I understand he didn't go to these things with all the other people. He went separately. He isolated himself from everybody. It's like, really, no wonder they feel that he isn't part of their world. He isn't. The valor and courage of our young women and men in the armed forces are a shining example to the whole world, and we owe them and their families our greatest respect. And it's interesting that we didn't talk about, are they transgender, in which case, we're not going to respect them. And I assure you, there were lots of transgender, gay men fighting, men and women fighting in both world wars. And, we never had that delineation before. You either were a soldier or you weren't. And I think, we need to really honor the people, whatever their political stripes, whatever their religious stripes, whatever their, how many, it's just like, it is so mind-blowing to me that we have come to this place in the world where we have isolated ourselves away from the common good. We owe our World War II veterans and all our veterans a debt we can never fully repay. I totally agree with that. I don't think we'll ever be able to repay them. But on this Veterans Day, I believe we should do more than sing praises of the bravery and patriotism of our veterans have embodied in the past. We should take this opportunity to reevaluate how we are treating our veterans of the present. How many of you agree with that? What are we doing to look after those that have chosen to serve? Yes, Trina, that's a very good question. And I understand that it's still not a done deal, this Brexit thing, right? And Trina's saying that Britain leaving the EU will bring unease. Yes, I am quite sure. And is it a definite thing still? Because I was reading somewhere that maybe Theresa May doesn't have the support she needs to actually go ahead and do it now. Oh boy, yeah. Yeah. That's a whole different subject, right? I'm not really, I don't really understand where it's got to. I mean, I thought, everybody voted for it, and then some of them went, oh, I didn't know what I was voting for. So, could somebody please tell me what's going on? Because I really don't know anymore. And so this is a great quote. It says, live as brave men, and if fortune is adverse, front it blows with brave hearts. In other words, be brave, go do what you have to do. And if the wind blows against you, right, fight its blows. It actually says front its blows, but what it means, just keep going forward with brave hearts. How many of you know that you have become stronger, better people through some of the adversity that you've been through in your lives? Wow, I didn't know that. Trina is saying that they're talking about a hard border again in Northern Ireland. Wow, that's another step back. Hi there, Sis. How are you doing? For those of you who don't know, Sis is one of my very staunch supporters when I do December. So let's give her a big round of applause. And for those of you who don't know, I don't think they've announced officially anything about it, but it will happen on the 14th, 15th, just so you guys know. I don't know. I haven't seen them put anything up about the day or anything, except I saw that they put up a little bit of the everybody dancing, but not anything in terms of telling people when to be ready. And so says, book the time, please. Says and Jody and a couple of others, are my just about Team No Sleep. Okay, so Trina's saying, so they definitely are leaving the EU, and they're saying that therefore there will be a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Is that right? That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. They need to do a chair system. Yeah, so you can join in. Yeah, well, I must admit that I'm not sure if I'll be up dancing every time this year either. I'd say that, but of course, every time I do, I end up dancing anyway. Last year, I stayed home. I still did the work, but I did it from home because I wasn't very well. But I will definitely be part of it this year. So here, how about this one? It's regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look on them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death. I think that's awesome. Soldiers, when committed to a task, can't compromise. It's unrelenting devotion to the standards of duty and courage, absolute loyalty to others, and not letting the task go until it's been done. How many of you need to think about that in your day today? How many of us, make a commitment, this is what I'm going to do today, and then just end up not doing it? When the will defies fear, when duty throws the gauntlet down to fate, when honor scorns to compromise with death, that is heroism. And so at some level, I would ask you on Veterans Day, and in our case, it's called Remembrance Day, to think about, what they had to endure. And they didn't complain, or if and they didn't say it's too difficult, or very few did. And those that did were shot. So, you look at it and you go, can you imagine the fear? I was thinking about the fear we were talking about earlier, about about going flying or doing any of those things because of terrorist attacks. And I'm going, you imagine the fear that these soldiers had every day. Linda, let me have a look. I didn't see anything about hard-boiled eggs. Where did you say that? Hang on a second. It might be easier if you just tell me again. Trina's got a quote from Will Smith who said, "I will never be outworked." Right, so he's a hard-working actor, isn't he? Um, I think we forget. We forget how hard, some actors work. And by the way, how many actors, did their part during the wartime, to produce movies and to go and, see the troops and things like that. I really do believe that everybody plays their part within their abilities. And quite honestly, I think some actors were far more successful being actors than they would have been maybe on, the front line. You know what I mean? They were of greater impact that way. I think about Vera Lynn, and the White Cliffs of Dover. I mean, that song was so epic and so memorable. Or It's a Long Way to Tipperary. I don't know who originally sang that, but, you go, boy, those are sort of iconic war songs that people will sing for the rest of humanity, I think. So they each plays their part, as I've said. Ira Hayes said, "I'm not a hero, but the brave men who died deserve this honor." And John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, he said, "Spending time with American soldiers is always inspiring." Wow, that's interesting. Linda says, not all the guards were bad. We're talking back to the Bridge Over the River Choir. Am I correct, Linda? Not all the guards were bad. Many of them, if they had to pull up the prisoner, would have to slap them. But they had a hard-boiled egg in their hands for the prisoner. Wow, isn't that wonderful? Thank you. John McCormick saying "It's a Long Way to Tipperary." Thank you very much, Jody. Boy, big round of applause for Jody. She does a great job of being our research person. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So for all of you, I would urge you to remember how lucky we are to be free. However frustrating the world is at the moment, however sad you are, however conflicted we seem to be, would you be grateful above all else that we are free? We are free to vote. We are free to say what we want to say, even though we might upset people. We don't live in a country where you get shot for it. I think it's really important that we genuinely give thanks to that. And so if ever you see anybody wearing one of these poppies, please will you remember that I believe that some places, if I am correct, some places in the States do wear poppies. And I can't understand why some people do in the States and some don't. I mean, it's a no-brainer here in Canada. Everybody's walking around wearing poppies. And I'm certain they are in England and in Ireland at the moment. But if you haven't seen it, and it's really important because it really gives you an idea, Google the Tower of London. Because the Tower of London has a complete display. I don't know the number, but I believe they are red ceramic poppies for every fallen soldier. Now, I'm not sure if they're every fallen soldier out of the UK, but it's an absolutely massive display of red poppies. And the poppies aren't made of material, they're actually ceramic. And I believe that they actually took some to the war memorial this year, if I understood that correctly, Linda and Trina, that some of those poppies migrated across to the to War Memorial. And I thought that was wonderful. But I mean, every time I see those poppies, I think about, my gosh, the time it must take to put that many hundreds of thousands of poppies out. You know, they plant them literally on stakes around the Tower of London and have them cascading down off the walls and all sorts of things. You know, the hours, the dedication of those people who actually put up that display. And I think about, yeah, it was raining too hard. I can't go. You know, so you're saying that the ceramic poppies now have migrated all the way to the local towns as well. That must be so incredible to see. I just think it's, you know, somehow or other, I feel that when we physically see one poppy for everybody who died, it gives you, you know, it gives you that, my gosh, moment. Whereas, you know, you can go to a ceremony and you can do all those things, but it doesn't give you the same impact when you see how many red poppies there are and you go, gosh, every one of those was a human being that got killed. And then, you know, I'm thinking about, was it the Battle of the Somme where 26,000 died just in that one battle? And it's just like, oh, you know, it is so scary. The scale of it, yes. And so, Linda, what are they doing in the local towns? Are they putting up one poppy for everybody from the town that died, or are they just blanketing the place with red poppies? And, you know, if you go through England anytime, if you get a chance to do that, it is amazing to actually go to the different war memorials in every town. All right, where they put up a war memorial to the young men that left the village and went to go and fought in the war that never came back. And, you know, it's quite amazing. When I was in Africa, it's off topic, but it's the same sort of idea. When I was in Africa, I remember visiting a cemetery in the middle of nowhere. And I just remember, okay, you too, Pat. Good to see you, honey. I just remember reading all the tombstones, and obviously there had been an outbreak of some fever. And it had basically killed the majority of the people in the town. And it was the saddest thing to read all these, you know, crosses and tombstones of people who had all died at the same time, you know, within a couple of months of each other. And you go, wow, this is all way back in whenever, you know, the early pioneer days, and something swept through that little town and killed most of the people in it. And I literally stood there, so thankful to be alive. Oh, and purple for the animals, yes, because the war horses and that's a good point, Linda, yes. Have any of you seen that movie, War Horse? Yeah, we forget that, especially in the First World War, right? How many war horses were there? Yeah. So, on a different note, let me ask you, what is it that you are going to concentrate on for this week? Where are you going to take stock of yourself and be grateful for what you have? Where do you want to put your energy this week? Anybody have a plan on that? I actually did something that I've never done before. I booked 2 major medical appointments on the same afternoon. I've never done that. You know, I literally go from my general practitioner straight to my respirologist to talk about my sleep apnea. all in one afternoon. And, you know, I have to explain that at my age, you know, doing one of those in a day, it tires me out. To do two, it will be quite interesting. But I decided I don't want to, and I didn't want to waste, excuse me, 2 lots of gas going out. You know, those appointments are about half an hour away from me. So why would I do that trek twice? That makes sense. I'm going in terms of the environment. Why would I spend that much money on gas? And just, you know, let me just get them both done on the same day. I've just got to remember not to come home. So that's going to be interesting. And I'm really quite proud of how well I've done with the sleep apnea thing. Oh, I have you know that we were talking about, I'm trying to make changes in my diet. And I thought I'd tell you what my change is for this week, if any of you are interested. These are the crackers that I normally eat. And just so that you know, let me get my glasses on so I can do this for you. And I love them. They are really great. They are 100 calories for 3 crackers. They have 8% sodium, 4% carbohydrate, 1% fiber, 2% sugar, 1 gram. No, I was right, 4% fiber, but 2 grams of protein. And they have a little bit of calcium and a little bit more of iron. All right, got that? Now I'm going to compare it. This is what I'm eating instead. Now, just first of all, have a look at the size of these. Okay, so they're this size. So they're nearly a third bigger. Can you see? Oh, actually, those are much smaller this way as well. So I would say these are probably nearly twice as big as the other ones. Go ahead, Trina. All right. And 1 serving of these is 3. Like Ribena, yes, very much like Ribena, very same sort of idea. And these are light ones. So here's the difference, and I'm going to compare them. Calories for 3 of these is only 80. So immediately, that's exciting, Kerry. Kerry's saying her birthday present should be this. All right, so fat-wise, fat in this one is 7%. Fat in this one is only 1%. Is that already a good thing? Sodium is 8% on these and only 4% in these. That's a half again. Carbohydrates, 4%. Now, the carbohydrates are higher here, but guess where? The fiber is 24% as opposed to 4. How many of you going, that's a better choice? Proteins, 2 grams, 2 grams, right? And they are the same in calcium and iron. So do you understand? I'm getting twice as much to eat, but halving most of the bad stuff. So that's my change up for this week that I've been doing. And by the way, I absolutely love them. I put cream cheese on them and then some black pepper on top. Here's another thing that I did. I've got some cauliflower ready for my my peanut butter and honey dip, right? But I've got some cauliflower here. And what I've done is, you know how vegetables, give off gases? What I've done is I've just put half of a paper towel over the top. I took the lid off out of my mason jar thing, and I've just put a paper towel there to absorb the gases and then put the lid back on. Does that make sense to everybody? So that this can sweat and the paper towel will absorb it. It can give up gases and they will leave the bottle. I don't know if that's an idea that any of you can use. I continue to tell you that, hi Nyasha, I continue to tell you that I really am loving doing this prepping. I find that every night I prep another sort of area. Last night I was prepping some lunch things. And tonight I'm pretty sure I'll be prepping some dinner things. So, and talking about dinner, tonight is not a healthy dinner. Let me start off by telling you that. I have cooking away in the slow cooker at the moment, a spaghetti pie. It's like a spaghetti bolognese pie. And I'm having broccoli and cauliflower in a cheese nutmeg sauce with it. Now, it sounds really bad, but it's again, how much am I going to have? And then what I do is I will then take the rest of it and, put it into servings of this size. And a lot of it goes downstairs, as you know. And I always send them enough for 2 meals, not for one. It's like, okay, fine. Everybody gets to have 2 meals out of this. So the other thing is that I don't know if it makes sense, but I have probably in the spaghetti sauce, I probably have 2 cups of hamburger in there, pre-made. And then I literally added in even more vegetables and everything else. So I'm learning to actually, just make more vegetables in things like shepherd's pie and anything that's like that. Just that the meat is there for the taste, but it's not the main ingredient. Oh, listen to this. Linda's telling me she's having carrot and turnip mash, smashed potatoes. Smashed up carrots and mashed up turnips with beef Yorkie pudding and gravy. With beef Yorkshire pudding and gravy. Oh, and roast potatoes. Well, how many of you want to pop over to England for dinner tonight? I do. And the good news, for those of you who've been following me on the downsizing, I have literally got my downstairs freezer almost totally cleared. It was, when we started this process, it was up to, you couldn't squeeze anything else in there. And I have used almost everything now. I've got some frozen fruit in there, but that's all. I'm so proud of myself. And I probably got about 1/3 of my main freezer in the kitchen that's gone now. But, I'm working on it. And the thing that I am doing, and I don't know if this makes any sense to anybody, but every week, every Sunday, I pull out 1 or 2 containers of frozen food. And I put them in my fridge. And if I haven't used them during the week, they go out. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, fine. Here you go. You can thaw in the fridge. But if I haven't eaten you by Sunday, you go down the carburetor and I'm going to say goodbye to you because I'm not going to eat you. So I'm trying to learn not to freeze things very much. All right. And, although I think I'm going to eat it, I probably don't. Last week, I had turkey, if you remember. Oh, it's going to be a nice day tomorrow. I'm sorry, I got distracted. There's a beautiful sunset. And I'm going, red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Yay, that's good. Okay, Linda, all the best. You can have your hair done. Wow, that's awesome. Send me a pic. So I definitely am trying not to fill up my freezer too much anymore. But it's amazing how I do it instinctively. There's part of me that doesn't want to throw the food away, and yet look what I'm finding. I'm throwing the food away anyway. So I obviously cook too much. I cook for a family of 10. But I'm looking forward to leftover broccoli and cheese. broccoli, cauliflower, and cheese. Yeah, that's going to be nice during the week. And also, small amounts of spaghetti pie. Yum. Oh, the other thing I've been doing, I don't know if I told you about this, but about twice a week, I get some containers out and I put about this much frozen fruit at the bottom and then about this much of yogurt on top. And then I just put some saran wrap over the top and then put it in the fridge. So I've always got like 3 desserts. And I'm amazed every night I go and have that. And if I've got what I call a need for a sweet, jolt of something sweet, I will just put a little drizzle of honey on top of it. And I want to tell you, I'm using up the frozen fruit in my freezer, and the yogurt's got to be good, right? Scary how many calories in yogurt, but never mind. And so I'm trying to do, what is it I'm trying to use? The one thing I did that I wanted to let you know was I did do some little mini omelets, and I did them in ramekin jars, and I think I videotaped that. So I should actually put that together for you. And they were really good. Not only were they really tasty, but I found they kept me full for a surprising amount of time. So that's another thing I would recommend if you are going to start doing a little bit of prepping. Things like hard-boiled eggs or little mini amounts of omelet. I think I did 1 egg per ramekin and then added vegetables into it. And then I cooked it up. So, it was a healthy bite, if you like, more than anything. So that was really good. Anybody else got any advice on swapping one thing for another that you found works well for you? Just let us know, because there are quite a few of us now trying to do that. But this one definitely works for me. Twice as much to eat, and I drop half the calories and stuff. Last week was every time I cook potatoes, I only cook half the amount of potatoes and the other half is yam. Whether I'm frying them, broiling them or whatever, I just am going, it has to be half of each. And it's amazing how tasty that is. And it works. And I'm going, I've halved my potato intake in a week. Very easily by doing that. And it's still very tasty. I still love grilled potatoes. Yum. Jody, you've been doing fresh vegetables and hummus, right? Which I can't eat because nearly always it has garlic in it, but it does look good. So I'm looking for really tasty dips other than the peanut and honey. Peanut butter and honey, I really recommend. But if anybody's got any others that are easy to make. Okay, if I may ask, can mushrooms be eaten alone when cooked? I haven't heard of their beneficial properties, and so I buy them. Oh, sorry, I have heard and I buy them. But they always go bad because I don't know how to cook it. Okay, let me tell you what I do, Nyasha. I buy the big ones, the portobello mushrooms, the ones this size, honey. And I cut them up and I freeze them raw. Okay, Marie, good to see you. I freeze them raw. You can add them to, almost anything. You can chop them up and put them in with rice. They take very little cooking. Yeah, sure. Literally, you can nuke them for a couple of minutes, they'll be cooked, or you can just fry them up with some onion. They're very, very easy to cook. Yeah, and they freeze really well. You can even buy, depending on, I don't know what it's like where you are, but at my local supermarket, I can actually buy them pre-cut as well. And so if I'm doing something like a meal, I find that because they're pre-cut, I can sort of put them on top of something towards the end and then just let it cook in the last half hour or something, and those mushrooms will cook up. The other thing is just, you can cook them up in a fry pan and then just put them aside and then add them to your meal at the very end if you want to. It's easy to overcook them, Nyasha. I think I would give that warning. Anybody else got any input for Nyasha on that one? But you're right, they are very, very good for you. Yes, now the thing is, depending at the, I don't have any here to show you, but never mind. Pretend this is a mushroom, and this is the stem here, and this is the top of it. Most of them have like a skin on the top, and you can literally just peel the skin off. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you're buying the small white ones, you can just take a soft brush and brush the skin off. But if you buy those big ones, you can literally just peel that skin off and just remove that. By the way, the stalks at the bottom, I keep those quite often and put them in with stir fries because they still have the mushroom taste. The other thing is if you buy those big mushrooms whole and turn them upside down and then, use them as, to put other food on, that's a really clever way to cook. I'm thinking about, put different peppers in them or things like that and then broil them, put them under the grill. Very tasty. Red and green peppers or yellow peppers or something like that. Makes, really good, quick vegetable, easy to make. It's a bit like stuffing a pepper. You can do the same thing with a mushroom. Can they be eaten raw? I would not ever eat a raw mushroom. And by the way, there are bad mushrooms, and so get the ones. Okay, so you've heard, what is your fear here? You've heard about bad mushrooms, right? Is that what your fear is? I eat raw mushrooms. If you buy the right mushrooms, you can eat them raw with salad. I've sliced mine thinly and had them raw with salad quite regularly. But you have to get the right mushroom. Make sure they're portobello mushrooms, or you get them from the store. Don't go out in the field and go and pick some. Those are the ones that'll kill you. If you happen to pass a tree that's got some mushrooms growing on the side, you go, oh, that's good, mushrooms. No, leave those. Go to the store and buy the proper ones. I love fried mushrooms. I don't know about everybody else, but I love fried mushrooms. And actually raw is really good. As I said, I have raw on salads quite often. Good question, though. And, it was funny when I was down with Benji and Judy, he had a problem. I couldn't believe it. I actually got to help him for a change. He had a decanter that had red wine in it. And the red wine had totally stained the decanter. And he was busy doing stuff with it. And it's funny, because when you're old, you learn things and you don't even think about it. I said, have you tried putting eggshells in there? And he goes, what? Have you tried putting eggshells in there? And a little bit of water with vinegar in it and a little bit of dish soap. No, why? I said, it'll clean it. That's what you're trying to do. He was trying to get a brush in there and it was impossible. I said, no, just put some eggshells, puts a little bit of vinegar water and a little bit of dish soap and then just keep swirling it around. And I'm not joking. He did that a few times. Guess what? The bottle was clean. So, and I had to love Judy because Judy looked at me and said, we have to remember that you've been around a long time. You've learned how to do these things. And I went, thank you, Judy. Just because we're old doesn't make us helpless anymore. We do have some knowledge. I didn't hear about mushrooms swelling up underwater. Did anybody else? They would absorb the liquid, is what you're saying. I didn't know that. That's not my experience. Maybe a little bit, but not horribly or anything. That's not my experience, but maybe somebody else has got input on that one. So if anybody in the comments or anything knows about mushrooms swelling up underwater, leave us a comment so Nyasha can read it afterwards. I definitely don't have any knowledge of that. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go and have my spaghetti pie. Very excited about that. And so as we go, I've got a quote here from Chris Kyle. And for those of you who don't know, he is the sniper that they made the movie about. And he said, "It was my duty to shoot the enemy, and I don't regret it. My regrets are for the people I couldn't save, the Marines, soldiers, my buddies. I am not naive, and I don't romanticize war. The worst moments of my life have come as a SEAL." He was a Navy SEAL. "But I can stand before God with a clear conscience about doing my job." And I guess as a parting thought for all our veterans, that some of our veterans had to do really horrible things in the name of war. And I am pretty certain from my experience of talking to a lot of them that some of them choose not to talk about what they saw or did. But regardless of what they saw, did, and tried so desperately to forget, let us never forget that it is because of them we have the freedoms that we do. And so whenever you see a veteran, whenever you see somebody wearing a red poppy, make sure that you do remember what Veterans Day is all about, and make sure that you thank them. I don't know what happens in the States, but in Canada and in the UK, we pay for these poppies. And we make a donation and get a poppy in return. And that money goes to help the aging veterans. And I think that is a wonderful thing for us to do. I don't want us ever to forget that they fought so long and hard and lost so many friends during those days of protecting us. And so as I leave you today, I leave you with the thought that we are indeed so fortunate. We have had people in our family that saw the need for duty and followed that call. And some came back and some didn't. And so for me, this is like, let us not forget these people, whether they fought in World War I, whether they fought in World War II, whether they went to Vietnam, whether they fought in Afghanistan, wherever. Let us not be anything but truly thankful for their incredible sacrifice. Because even if they survived, so many of them, well, who could ever come back the same? I think that's what I'd have to say. And I would also remind you that whatever your troubles are this week, think about the 26,000 fighting on the Somme and Flanders Field, in the mud, going through barbed wire, going to certain death. I think, that it might in some way help us go through this week feeling a little bit better about who we are, and what we're tackling isn't quite that bad. And so for all of you, thank you for sharing this with me today. I thought it really important that we do this Remembrance Day today. It's not often that I get to do a broadcast on the actual day that we do Remembrance Day. And so I went, no, I don't care. This needs to be done. So for all of you who have military people in your family, thank you. And for all of you who will have military people in your family, in other words, your children, grandchildren, or whatever may join, thank them on my behalf. This is Dear Mama Sal saying thank you for being here. Have a wonderful week. Be forever grateful for the freedoms that we have. Look after one another, but most of all, please remember to look after yourself. Bye-bye for now.